All right. Good evening, everyone. The regular business meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6 o'clock p.m. on September 27th, 2022. This meeting of the Osseo School Board is being conducted in the boardroom of the Educational Service Center. The meeting can be monitored electronically by streaming online from the district website. An archived recording of tonight's meeting will also be available on the district website. Seated in front of you this evening from my left to your right, Director Heather Douglas, Director Thomas Brooks, Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones, myself, Kelsey Dawson-Walton, Director Tanya Simons, Director Tamara Grady. We also have Superintendent Corey McIntyre, as well as the cabinet members Kelly Parpar, Brian Bass, John Morstead, Tim Palmatier, and other cabinet members will come to the board room as needed for agenda items. We are so happy to have our student school board representatives for our 2022-2023 school year, and we'll introduce them shortly. First though, for those of you who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Simons, will you please lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, are there any additions to the agenda? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Director Douglas, thank you, and seconded by Director Grady to accept the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes 6-0. Our next standing agenda item is recognitions, and tonight we do not have recognitions. At this time, Superintendent McIntyre will introduce our student school board representatives, the second group of students to fulfill this role since it began last year. But first, on behalf of the entire board, I'd like to express how excited and happy we are to have you here. I can feel the energy. We were able to break some bread together earlier today and meet the rest of the board, and so we're super excited for this year and all that is to come. So,
all right, thank you, Chair Dawson-Walton. Good evening, board members. We're, as you said, excited to introduce our student school board representatives, and the students hopefully already begin to feel how our school board highly prioritizes and values student voice. Over the course of the past year, we implemented a new student school board representative program, and we're now in the second year with a new group of student representatives. So while involved in the program, our school board representatives know this, as we've talked to you about, that this will be kind of a challenging due to the different priorities and perspectives that come to the board. And you also have already been learning how this can be rewarding and how it's an honor for you to represent your fellow scholars. So the views and the updates from the school board representatives will bring great insight to our board meetings as they did last year. And they have a lasting impact on our district. And as the student board representatives, you are each serving in a leadership position that'll help you learn about yourself, about others, and prepare you for leading in the future. This will also provide you a foundational experience that'll help you gain insights into your future career paths and your future aspirations. We're already very proud of you for stepping up and providing this kind of direction and leadership for the district. Board members, our selection process includes very specific criteria, as we talked about last year. And there was advertising for this opportunity in our high schools, along with the details of the program in the application process. And interested students submitted their candidacy. They participated in an interview process, and those selected are here with us tonight. I'd like to introduce Amy Tollefson, our district level principal, who acts as our student board representative mentor and has spent time in the recent days and weeks with our scholars preparing them for this first board meeting. So she'll assist with the introduction of our new student representative. So thank you, Amy.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent McIntyre. And we are thrilled to have all of you here for our first meeting of the year. And I've already been able to do onboarding work with them about a month ago and getting to know each of them as individuals and collectively as a group. And I can say that they have really, really positive energy. They are very enthusiastic to begin this experience, and they are already eager to speak on behalf of their students, their scholars at their school, as well as to just offer insights and perspectives from their own experiences. So with that, each one of them is going to introduce themselves by saying their name, the school they represent, and the grade that they are in, and a few words on why they wanted to be a student school board representative. So we'll start with Mwata.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mawata Kamara. I represent Park Center. I'm in my junior year, and the reason why I chose to be on the school board was because I am often very interested in voicing my opinions, and I felt though this would be a great opportunity to voice the students at my school as well as hear others' opinions on other subject matters. I find ways to create bonds on helping better our education, and one of the main reasons I joined this program was to showcase my voice and opinions on different subject matters.
Hello, my name is Priya Moa. I am representing the 279 online school, and I am a junior this year. The reason why I chose to be a student representative is because I want to give many students an opportunity to voice their ideas and opinions on how to improve the district. Thank you.
My name is Linnea Neldner. I'm the OSSEO representative, and I am a senior this year. My reason for joining the representative kind of committee thing was because I have heard many opinions from my friends and from my fellow peers and all those kind of interactions, and I thought it would be neat to take on the role of voicing them and just taking all the viewpoints and adding them into one. So that is my opinion.
Hi, my name is Timur Yusinov, and I represent Maple Grove Senior High. I am in my senior year. I wanted to be a representative of Maple Grove because I felt like I wanted and I needed to be an outlet for the student body, for them to be able to voice their concerns regarding district policies or whatever they feel, and that they should be heard.
Thank you. We are excited to have each one of you on as our student board reps for this year.
So our student representatives have reviewed the board meeting packet in advance, and they are prepared to answer questions from board members on issues to seek student input related to agenda items for this evening's meeting. And so I'll open up to board members if you have any agenda items where you'd like any input from our scholars.
Sure, I'll ask a question. So, so tonight we have a lot of finance activities. So I'm just interested in kind of your experience in learning about the different items we're talking about. And I don't expect you to become experts in school board finance, but just interested to hear kind of what your observations was or how that experience was in reviewing that material.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. I agree.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I would agree. It is a lot of money, but yeah, we're all doing pretty good with it, so yeah.
I personally didn't really look over it into much depth or detail, but I can agree with the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam.
Well, hopefully our future board meetings will have some more exciting topics.
I have a question. So today we're taking action on the second reading of Policy 516, Student Medication. Is there anything about this policy that is striking to you, or anything you've heard about the implementation of it that might be problematic or beneficial to students in your school?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is it, like, what is the student medication thing?
So it's a policy that it's changes to the policy for the medication administration.
Oh, so like what medicine can be given to students during the school day?
Yep, it's about what medications that they can get, where they can get it, and how they can get it.
Oh.
Basically, you're not allowed to have your own medications on your person while you're in class, but you have to get them from the nurse's office for the most part.
Yeah. One thing, cause this, I experienced this last year. Normally I have Tylenol for like just painkillers, but I was told that I couldn't bring it to school to take it cause I needed to have given it to the nurse in order to take it. So I maybe like letting the students know ahead of time, cause I wasn't given that information before doing so. And also like on medications as like Advil, Tylenol, such things like that. I feel like, especially in high school, I feel like students should be given the right to take those when they need to, because I feel like a lot of students use it to help them out, and yeah, I would say. Because I'm an athlete, and I barely get enough sleep, and I'm always juggling around things, and I found that Advil and like painkillers, they kind of help me restore my physical, whatever it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I also agree with that. I think students should have the right to bring their medication with them whenever that is, because you never know when they truly do need it. And being a student myself, I do know how late some students stay up studying and doing their work, so it is very helpful if the school does let them know beforehand.
I definitely think it's a good thing too, because I've had friends come up and be like, yo, you got an ibuprofen or something like that. So definitely not being, having the thing where you have to go all the way down to the nurse to get it and be able to provide that for them. I think it's a good thing, because you never know where some like sudden pain might pop up. So I think it's an important thing to like have that available, but I do understand the nurse thing, so.
I understand why there's a need to have the nurse have the medication, but I also think when it comes to painkillers and Tylenol, whenever I have a headache, I just don't feel like going out of my way to go to the nurse's office for my classes. So it usually ends up with me having to just bear through it, and I feel like a lot of other students in my school can feel the same way. So I think the school should have a bit more transparency, because I also didn't know that you can only have it with a nurse. I've been told that, but it was very brief, and I did get like scolded for having Tylenol once, and I didn't know about it, so yeah, that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
All right, anyone else? No? Well, we are so happy to have you here, and thank you for answering those questions and being so prepared. The next agenda item, is audience opportunity to address the school board. I'm going to read.
Chair, we can excuse our student reps.
Oh, I'm
too.
sorry, yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you for
teaching
saying
them
that.
the routine here.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So thanks for being here tonight. This was a time for you to transition out if you'd like. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you guys next month.
Yes.
You don't have,
Yeah.
they don't have to leave though if they want to stay.
I don't know, Amy, if that was the plan or, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
He has to stay because you're in his government class, yeah.
Class.
He's
We have a
here
lot
for
of
his government class too.
students taking.
We do also have many scholars here
Yeah,
from
right.
student government class,
Yeah.
excuse me, so
Yeah.
great to see you all. All right. All right, so our next agenda item is audience opportunity to address the school board. I'm going to review a few of the guidelines for those that will speak to the board. During audience opportunity to address the school board, I will call on each speaker who has submitted a speaker card. We ask that speakers keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board section of the district website. When I call your name, please come to the microphone and state your name, your topic, and also state whether or not you are a district resident. So first we have Gina and Aaron Tharp.
Hi, my name is Aaron Tharp. This is Gina Tharp. We are the parents of a freshman at Maple Grove High School. The superintendent and the board know who we are, though we haven't been formally introduced. We are here to propose 2 policies. And I'm glad that there are some students to actually hear these 2 policies that we're proposing. The first policy is that the district should not be able to record students or families or their medical providers without prior consent of the family, the medical provider, or whoever is being recorded. The second policy that we're proposing is that if the school district wants to file litigation, if it wants to sue a family, that decision should be within the purview of the superintendent with the approval of the board. The reason that we're proposing these two policies is because our family have actually been victimized by both of those situations. Our family have actually been recorded by district officials at the direction of a senior district official without our knowledge and without our consent, and it was a medical provider who was providing medical information on our daughter to the district. Our family was also sued because we would not agree to further reductions for my daughter's IEP. So I came home and found that the district sued my family, and we've been in litigation for years. The very quick history of this dispute, just so you have some context for the two proposals, is we moved into this school district in October 2015. We moved from Boone County, Kentucky. My daughter has an individual education plan, an IEP. When we moved into the district, even though I shared that IEP with the school district before I moved here, the school district gutted my daughter's IEP, taking services away, providing her a less education than what she received in Boone County, Kentucky. When she was matriculating to middle school, the district again tried to take services away from my daughter in February of 2019. Our family could not agree to further reductions in our daughter's IEP. Our approach was that we should at least try to compromise and have some conversation about what her IEP should look like. On February 1, 2019, I came home from work to find out that the school district had
30
sued me,
seconds remaining.
that has filed litigation against my family. After a year and a half of accruing attorney's fees, we filed for a hearing on September 14, 2020. The Minnesota Department of Education, ALJ, found in our favor. It found that the school district failed to provide my daughter the minimal requirements under federal law of what a special education student should receive. The school district, instead of trying to make additional investments into its special education program, fix what was broken, instead appealed that decision. It appealed that decision on June 21st, 2021. On September 13th, 2022, a U.S. District Court federal judge again found that this school district violated federal law by failing to provide my daughter the minimal requirements required for a special education student. Even today, we continue to have problems with the school district abiding by the federal judge's order, and we have to seriously consider whether or not we have to file enforcement and potential contempt actions. In regards to the recording, on May 30th, 2019, a special education coordinator, at the direction of a more senior special education coordinator, recorded a phone conversation between myself, my daughter's medical provider, and the school district. Not only did the school district make that recording, but it brazenly used that recording in litigation. No family should be subjected to there be an IEP meeting, a parent-teacher conference, or a disciplinary meeting. Should they have to worry about being recorded by a district official without them knowing it? And no family should have to go home wondering whether or not they might be served and have taxpayer dollars, our dollars, to sue another special needs family and to use those dollars for fruitless appeals without at least knowing who made that decision. That is the reason for the two policies. I'm glad the students are here because I'm sure that they can agree that there is really no reason for any parent or family to be recorded without their consent. What questions do you have for me, if any?
Thank you. This is the public comment period, so we don't do back and forth questions, but we thank you for being here today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Marion Holmquist. Do you-
Maple Grove,
Ma'am,
and
ma'am, do you want to come closer so you can hear you?
I'm Mary Ann Holmquist, and I am a resident of Maple Grove. And I'll make this brief because I was here last month. I'm the great-grandma of two innocent little girls, and I am very opposed to the woke movement and the indoctrination. I don't think children need to be. I don't know of a positive result that can come from it other than confusion by young children. Kids are, I think, are meant to just accept everyone, you know, what race, gender, until an adult comes in and makes them aware of it. Otherwise, I think kids learn to adjust to everybody. So I don't think it's necessary to have them decide whether they want to be a boy or a girl or a cat. How low can we sink? So I had asked for an answer to the question as to why it's being taught in the schools. And I don't know about Maple Grove, just how intense it is, but I was here then the meeting that it was approved. So if someone could just, my telephone number's on my card, if someone can just tell me if there is a good positive reason for confusing our children with the woke movement. And I really don't want the answer that it's diversion, because I don't see that diversion really helps or it really fits into the situation. But anyway, I don't want my two little great-granddaughters being exposed to that if they don't need to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Superintendent McIntyre.
Thank you. So good evening again, board members and Chair Dawson-Walton. So a regular part of our superintendent's report is to share our points of pride in our district, and especially as we've started this new school year in our third week. We're excited to be back in really kind of hitting our stride with the start of the year. So by sharing our points of pride, we're going to take some time to recognize and celebrate our students, staff, community members who are working so hard to contribute to the accomplishment of our mission, which is to inspire and prepare each and every scholar with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. So tonight I have members of our district cabinet here to assist in sharing some of the examples over the past few weeks since we started school. So I'll turn it over to Tim Palmatier to get us started. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Before welcoming scholars back for the 2022-23 school year, schools and programs around the district held orientations and open houses for students to meet their teachers, see their classrooms, receive their technology, and even give their mascot a hug too. Before the school year began, Dr. Stephen Peters joined Superintendent McIntyre to welcome back all staff and kick off the school year. Dr. Peters shared a message of everyone and everyone and urged staff to go into the school year undefeated with positive energy. We were also excited to welcome back students for the 2022-23 school year. Across the district, scholars arrived on the first day, ready to learn and excited to see their teachers and classmates. Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz and Education Commissioner Dr. Heather Mueller visited Zanewood Community School on the first day of school to kick off the new school year. In the area of achieving dreams, congratulations to Maple Grove Senior High School seniors, Savatya Aurora, Andrew Ladini, and Shrikar Palani for being named 2023 National Merit Scholarship finalists. These students were 3 of 16,000 semifinalists named nationally and are a great representative to our district. Congratulations to 32 seniors from Osseo Senior High who scored 30 or higher on the ACT. This amazing accomplishment is a true reflection of all the hard work and dedication of these scholars and staff. Students from Ukraine visited Osseo area schools, meeting the students and teachers and experiencing a day in the schools. These international students were part of the ULEAD 2022 program, sponsored by the Global Synergy Group. The students in ULEAD shadowed students from Osseo Senior High on Monday and Park Center Senior High on Tuesday, attending all classes and lunch. The Ukrainian students noted they enjoyed meeting all of the people and attending classes that were different from what they'd experienced before, like health and art.
Before school was in session, many students and community members gathered to cheer on the Maple Grove Senior High School and Osseo Senior High School football teams in their season opener. Maple Grove Senior High senior student and football player Max Kennedy sat down with Care 11's Randy Shaver to talk about his determination on and off the field. Head coach Matt Lombardi said, "It's pretty cool to watch what this kid has done here. He's a testament. Even when your life is really tough, he never gave up 1 second. Now he's a new Max." In the area of contributing to community, scholars at Zanewood Community STEAM School were growing together during the first week of school. 2 fourth grade classes visited the garden to harvest food and learned how to know when it is the right time to pick different fruits and vegetables. The scholars can take these lessons with them and utilize them in the future to grow gardens of their own. Rice Lake Elementary hosted a free car wash on September 17th. While community members had their cars washed by students, they also learned information about the November 8th referendum and job opportunities in Osseo area schools. Great job to all of the scholars and staff members at Rice Lake who made this great event happen. And thank you to KidStop for providing great support to students and families this summer. Over 156 summer staff served 937 kindergarten through 5th grade students while offering 49 days of care. If you are looking for a great opportunity to engage with students, check out KidStop or other open district positions.
In the area of lifelong learning, School Bus Safety Week was September 19th through the 23rd. Across the district, Osseo area schools elementary scholars learned about how to get on and off the bus. They also learned about proper bus riding etiquette, including saying hello to their bus drivers, using handrails and using inside voices, and participated in emergency bus evacuation drills. Students also watched a video to learn about why bus safety is so important. If you want to see more photos of students participating in School Bus Safety Week activities, check out our Facebook page. Maple Grove Senior High School had their homecoming the week of September 19th through the 23rd. The Spirit Week concluded with a pep fest where the band and various student singers performed. The grades each had a dance-off, and Superintendent McIntyre participated in a staff dance. Park Center Senior High School is having their homecoming this week, and Osseo Senior High will have their homecoming the week of October 3rd through the 7th. Osseo area schools recognizes Constitution Day each year on September 17th to celebrate the adoption of the United States Constitution and those who have become citizens. Across the district, students learned about the Constitution in their classes. At Maple Grove Senior High School, Mary Van Lerhoven, 10th grade U.S. history class, participated in a lesson on how the Iroquois Confederacy's form of government was the basis for the U.S. Constitution. In Crime and Justice, an elective class at Osseo Senior High School taught by Megan Thompson, students received I Will Vote red stickers to celebrate Constitution Day. The students spent the class period learning about the Fourth Amendment, which protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. Students in Chrissy Molsness' 9th grade physical science class at Maple Grove Senior High School participated in an activity to learn about aerodynamics and research processes. Students were given a straw, piece of tape, and piece of paper and instructed to create a rocket. Students tested their rockets in front of the class, seeing how far they traveled. They then went back and updated their rockets based on what they saw, made their classmates' rockets successful. In the area of mission-driven employees, we are excited to announce that 3 new principals have joined our district. Scholars at Crestview Elementary School, Rice Lake Elementary School, and Woodland Elementary School sat down with principals Stephanie Webster, Diane Bagley, and Terry Jackson to ask them questions like what made them want to be a principal and what they were most excited for this school year. You can watch the student-led interviews on our Facebook page. Osseo Area Schools recognizes Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th. Students are engaged in learning about the history, culture, and contributions of Hispanic Americans. Sadie, an emotional support dog, and Anna Teeple, library media specialist at Northview Middle School, have made some book recommendations with Hispanic characters and stories. You can see in the photo there. Thank you.
And board members, before I get to some reminders, I just wanted to acknowledge and really give a thank you to our scholars, their families, and our staff for all their efforts to make our start of the year a successful one. We've talked a lot about how this is really a year of resetting and reimagining what we can be with our new strategic plan. And I'm just so proud of the energy and effort and collaboration between all, again, our scholars, our families, and our staff to make this a really positive 3 weeks to kick off the year. So lastly, just a few reminders on our district calendar and events. So early voting is now open, and you can find your polling place at the Minnesota Secretary of State website via mnvotes.org. And last but not least, save the dates for the 2 remaining fall community informational meetings on building a better future. The board and the leadership team members will share information and be available to answer referendum questions in person at Park Center Senior High School on October 4th and Maple Grove Senior High on October 18th. So similar to the spring meetings, the information portion of the meetings will be streamed online. Also, due Friday, I ask our families not to forget to fill out their back to school forms and the free and reduced meal application if they haven't already done so. And with that, Chair Dawson-Walton, I'll turn it back to you. That concludes my superintendent's report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Director Douglas, do you have any reports or updates? I don't think I do. Just kicking off the year. Yeah. Yeah. Director Brooks.
No reports.
All right, Director Mosqueda Jones.
I have 2 reports. The Northwest Suburban Integration School District had their first meeting of the fall last Thursday. And the updates went over the usual financials, overviewed the strategic plan. The district is looking at a transportation management system because of issues with transportation and having to coordinate so many districts. The superintendents and Northwest Suburban Integration School District are working on having a better management system for that. They're going to be working on more professional development virtually after school hours, so teachers are able to attend those more often. We got highlights of the Step Up and Essence mentoring programs and how those operate and kind of how those work. And then they're pretty intensive mentoring programs that are multiple years, and then they have final celebrations. There's new visioning work, kind of like we just went with our strategic plan, kind of stepping back and doing some vision work with a superintendent group. I believe Superintendent McIntyre is on that. And then there was an update on Educators Rising, that program getting more recognition and really close to being a state recognized program. And then also an update that some of the professional development with the intensive concentration on literacy for many of the districts and equity, to combining those 2 together and talking about literacy through a cultural competence lens. So that's Northwest Suburban Integration School District. I also had 2 287 meetings in September. On September 8th, there was the first week video of things that were going on, and then an update on the Innovative Mental Health Grant that was awarded to 287. Remembering that for the students here, District 287 is an intermediate school district that works with kids who have special needs that may not fit exactly into programs that we have, but work collaboratively with several different school districts. And so with that grant, they're looking at working with Wilder, having more mental health support, funding their therapeutic teaching model, which has gotten a lot of recognition lately, working on hiring a restorative practice coordinator and an equity inclusion coordinator, and also increasing sensory music therapy, and some professional development. On the September 22nd meeting, we went over the safety plans, which was similar to if you went to the community meeting on safety for Osseo area schools. A lot of different layers of doing safety in 287, just like here, beginning with relationships, going all the way to implementing those types of scanners where you can scan for lots of metal or firearms as a bunch of people are walking through, so that we're not targeting specific students. And if the board will indulge me, the highlight of September 22nd was a student, the very first student spotlight of the school year, who attended Maple Grove Senior High and came and gave a speech to us at 287. So if you will allow me, I would like to read her speech. It's only one, quick page. She said I could share it, and she also said to say thank you to Dr. Becker because he was so helpful in doing all this. So it says, "Hello, my name is Cheyenne Walker. I'm 20 years old. I live in Maple Grove, and I attended Osseo High School before coming to District 287 and Maple Grove. In high school, I was searching for colleges. I actually applied at the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. As you can imagine, Cheyenne Walker is deaf, and she had an ASL sign language interpreter while she was talking to us. She was accepted to the National Technical Institute, and her teachers told her about Vector, and so she came to Vector, which is a program at 287, to continue to build my communication skills and prepare for college work. This is my second year at Vector. Here's what I've accomplished so far. I spent a lot of time getting organized and worked on my college readiness skills with Miss Kendra. Miss Kendra spent time sitting next to me looking at different careers and degrees. I'm very interested in becoming a psychologist. I researched classes to start, and I applied at HTC. I completed 2 college classes and have a 3.5 GPA. I'm currently in the Certified Nursing Assistant Pathway class at Hennepin Technical College. I would like to earn my certification. I have connected with Vocational Rehabilitation Services for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. My counselor is Steve Emery, and he's part of my educational team. I currently have 2 part-time jobs that I make into full-time. I've worked at Marshall for 3 years, and I work at Walmart, and have been there for 8 months now. I'm working on building a great resume. I completed driver's ed and earned my driver's permit, and I kind of increased my budgeting skills, but I like to shop. I'm really responsible and pay my bills on time. I have become a better self-advocate. I ask teachers to put on captions and repeat if I do not understand. I also will ask the interpreter to repeat if I do not understand. I work with many different interpreters, and I'm learning how to work with different styles and what works best for me. This will help me in the future working with interpreters. I access my resources at school like the social worker, work experience coordinator, the deaf, hard of hearing itinerant teacher, ASL interpreters, and other school staff. I'm motivated to go to college and have a career. I want to live in Atlanta someday, so I need to keep building my skills in independent living. I plan to take advantage of my time left at Vector to keep exploring careers and take college classes. Thank you for listening to my story, and I'm so very honored that you picked me for a spotlight. Thank you for having me this evening. After which we begged her to stay in Minnesota. That's it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie. Director Simons.
So I just have the District 279 Foundation Board of Trustee meeting report, and really the latest activity that we had was the 5K at the end of August. And so even though it was raining and lightning and thundering, we had a really awesome group of people who stayed and ran the race. And we had the kids race. And so it was really exciting. And it raised $12,000, a little over $12,000, which was on budget. So the good news is that through all of the different events that we've had so far, the foundation's actually raised more than they originally expected on their budget. So right now, as we look ahead, we're going to be giving a budget of $5,000 a month in different grants, and additional funding can be identified if needed. So over the course of the school year, district staff can place applications for different opportunities that are kind of above and beyond the day-to-day classroom experience. So it's a really important foundation that helps to provide a lot of above and beyond experiences that scholars may not otherwise be able to participate in. So good news, and just please continue to watch for events and participate, and you can always donate to the foundation online at any time. Thanks.
Thank you.
No reports.
I do, for Association of Metropolitan School Districts, a couple things. AMSD is working with the Minnesota Department of Ed and Office of Higher Ed and Pellsby to address kind of some workforce shortage concerns. So that's what they're, and looking into some possible legislative solutions. We reviewed results of the legislative platform from our districts, and so, you know, this session will be a budget setting legislative session, so a lot of talk ranging from like reduced cross subsidies to universal meals. And then I think the one that I am most proud of is that they pulled together AMSD with many other educational partners and the Minnesota State High School League Together We Make a Difference initiative to address racial harm incidents in school activities. And Superintendent McIntyre, you were there, and I came to the very, very tail end, but it was really cool to see. We had a whole delegation representing OSSEO from Maple Grove, Park Center, and OSSEO scholars, and I think it was a really cool opportunity. They were able to spend time. There was I think 9 different sessions across the entire state, and so I think they've done 4 of them so far. And but the one in the Northwest Metro was really, really well attended. They did like a cafe, World Cafe style, and it was really fun. I know that, you know, people, so many of the scholars there get to see other, you know, their friends from other schools, and it was really productive morning. So I think that's cool, and there's a lot more to come on that. Our next agenda item is a presentation of the preliminary fiscal year 2022 financial report. John Norstad, Executive Director of Finance and Operations, and Kelly Venusa, Director of Business Services.
Thank you, Chair Dawson Walton. As Kelly's getting ready, you know, when the school year is winding down and getting to the end, there's kind of this collective sigh of relief after the last day of school. Those in the finance department, that is notice to get your feet in your starting blocks and get ready to go, because the following week is when we start the audit. So what Kelly is going to present this evening, I'll introduce Kelly Venusa, Director of Business Services. She will give the preliminary financial report for the fiscal year ending in 2022. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, John. Good evening, Chair Dawson Walton, board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. Tonight, the preliminary year-end financial results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022 are being presented. The district is required to annually complete an independent audit and submit financial reports by December 31st. We begin this process in August, and the results are presented to the school board by an independent audit firm for final approval in November. By September, the process provides preliminary year-end financial reports to assist in the budget development for the upcoming fiscal year. Although numbers are not final, we do not anticipate any significant changes. I'd like to thank the entire business services team for their efforts during this process. I'd especially like to thank Mike Hewler, who's in the audience with us this evening, along with Michelle Larson and Liz Lanto. These 3 individuals are instrumental in ensuring that our audit is performed at the highest level of expectation. The school board has before them a memo along with 3 attached exhibits, which summarize the financial results. The first fund being discussed is the general fund. This fund includes the primary operations of the district in providing educational services to students from pre-kindergarten through grade 12, including transportation activities. Exhibit 2 shows the general fund revenue and expenditure budget variance. The combined variance was a positive 0.88%. This was less than our budget planning benchmark of 2%. Exhibit 1 shows the actual results in comparison with the budgeted amounts. The general operating revenues were under budget by less than $15,000, or 0.01%, or 1/100%. Tax collections decreased almost $400,000 from budgeted amounts. Investment earnings were less than budget due to unrealized loss adjustments to market value at year-end. The general education aid was more than budgeted amounts, with actual students served being 10 fewer than budgeted and 101 more extended time students from previous estimates. Overall, revenues were under budget by less than $15,000 and had a negative 0.01% variance from when comparing the budget to our actual results. Salaries were over budget by $217,000 or 0.13%. This variance is mainly due to the $750 stipend of $1.7 million, which was not budgeted for in '22. And this item was mostly offset by open educational support professional and custodial positions and unused budget capacity. The variance for employee benefits can be attributed to two main areas. First, employee health insurance and HSA contributions were $413,000 less than projected. And second, unemployment was $184,000 less than anticipated due to the state of Minnesota utilizing federal funds to reduce those claims related to COVID-19. The purchase services expenditures were $3.4 million under budget. Transportation contracted services and snow removal were under budget by $870,000 and $161,000 respectively. Transportation actual costs were lower due to several factors, including the new contract for Type 3 transportation, learning model changes caused by COVID-19, propane fuel rebates, and one snow day. Utilities were under budget due to energy efficiency tactics, and other purchase services were under budget by $1.8 million. Tuition paid to other districts and PSEO paid to colleges was under budget by $880,000. The remaining variance is due to cost containment of management and staff. Supplies, capital, and other expenditures were under budget by $875,000. General and instructional supplies were under budget by $833,000. The majority of that variance is due to cost containment of management and staff. Overall, a positive variance of $4.6 million or 1.74% was achieved when comparing actual expenditures with our budgeted amounts. Exhibit 2 is the fiscal year '22 general fund financial summary. The district's planning benchmark is that actual revenues will be within 2% of our budgeted totals. The district size of operations is $520 million when combining the revenue and expenditure budgets. The district's procedures are to analyze our revenues and expenditure budgets and revise the adopted budgets to match available estimates. For fiscal year '22, the net revenue expenditure budget variance was $4.6 million or 0.88%. This was within that planning benchmark parameters of 2%. In comparing Osseo to its financial benchmark districts, Osceo's percent is similar to others with a range of 2 to 4%. Exhibit 3 is the fund balance summary for all funds. Overall, the fund balances for all funds, as shown on the bottom of Exhibit 3, decreased from the prior year amount of $159.6 million to $141 million at June 30th, 2022, for a combined decrease of $18.6 million. The general fund in blue decreased fund balance by almost $3 million, as described in Exhibit 1, when including non-operating funds such as grants, gifts, and student activities. The capital expenditure land proceeds fund in yellow increased fund balance by $1.6 million. The fund balance of $9.5 million is restricted by state statute for facilities, equipment, textbooks, technology, and long-term facilities maintenance. The food nutrition services fund in purple increased fund balance to $6.6 million, or 44% of annual expenditures. We continue to utilize these resources to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of operations through future capital improvements. The Community Service Fund in green increased fund balance to $5.1 million, or 36% of all expenditures. Under state law, all revenue and fund balances are reserved for community education programs. The building construction fund balance decreased $15.8 million. This decrease was due to the spend down for long-term facilities maintenance projects according to the plan approved by the board, and the spend down for the Rice Lake Elementary project. The debt service fund balance decreased $4.3 million. Debt service, fund revenue, and expenditures represent amounts necessary to meet principal and interest payment schedules associated with the long-term debt of the district. Next, we'll review the 5-year projection for the general fund. This is the high-level visual organizer for the financial forecast that was introduced for the fiscal year 23 adopted budget. This version assumes operating referendum passes at the cap this November and is in place for fiscal year 24. There are 3 sections to this projection. The top section shows the revenue expenditure differences, fund balance, and fund balance percentage for a 7-year window that begins with actual for fiscal year 21 and 22, the adopted budget for 23, and projections for fiscal years 24 through 27. You will see some operational adjustments under this chart. This line is to highlight any needed adjustments, and those numbers are included with the expenditures listed above. The total for all years is listed to the right. The assumptions section shows the revenue and expenditure assumptions being used in fiscal year 24 through 27. The next section shows the budget projection for revenues in blue and expenditures in red. The trend lines of the same colors show the general trajectory of each of these items. As you can see, expenditures are projected to outpace revenues. The final section looks at the fund balance projections for that same time period. The green bar represents our actual and projected fund balances for each year. The orange bar shows the minimum required fund balance of 5% as set in board policy. Again, the trend lines show the trajectory of the fund balances related to the minimum. As you can see, the operational reductions noted on the previous slides are needed in order to maintain the board required minimum fund balance of 5%. Under this model, we're planning for operational reductions of $4 million for fiscal year 2027. This slide shows the impact of the referendum not passing this fall, but being renewed in fiscal year 2025 at the current level. Again, this section shows the revenue expenditures, differences, fund balances, and fund balances percentage for that 7-year window. So when we look at this projection, we would be planning for operational reductions of $5 million for fiscal year 24, $2 million for 25, and this is the fiscal year that we would need to add back expenses that were covered with federal funds in 23 and 24 through ESSER 3 of $9.5 million, $4 million for fiscal year 26, and then $5 million for 27, or a total of $16 million in reductions. To provide some context, without the operational reductions, our fund balance would go negative by fiscal year 27 by 7.6%, which would put us in statutory operating debt, or SOD. Districts in SOD are required to file detailed plans that must be approved by the Minnesota Department of Education on how they plan to get out of debt. We have also provided a worst-case scenario in the board materials where the operating referendum is not renewed. It's very clear where we would need to be taking cuts and programs and services in that version. Next steps. In summary, the year-end results were a little better than we anticipated due to the continued impact of COVID-19, our changing learning models, utilization of federal funds to offset additional costs, and continued efforts of both staff and administration. Even with the passage of the operating referendum this fall, we'd still be facing budget reductions in fiscal year 27. The fiscal year 2022 financial results will be incorporated into our long-range financial planning process as designed. As usual, the board will be providing direction and taking action in 3 different fiscal years over the next several months. This action will be impacted by these positive year-end results for fiscal year 22. First, on November 13th, we'll continue the formal fiscal year 2024 budget planning process at the board's work session. These year-end results will be incorporated into the long-range financial planning process. Second, the auditors will present the fiscal year 22 audit reports at the November 25th school board meeting. And finally, these results will be utilized in the fiscal year 23 mid-year budget update and brought forward for approval at the February 21st school board meeting. And with that, I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, board members, does anyone have any questions? Tamara?
No, thank you so much for putting this together for us, and I really like some of the new graphic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consistent with the reports that we get throughout the school year. Great news to be slightly favorable even to that. We continue to monitor what's really required when we look into the long-term sustainability. So appreciate those outlooks, and also in the format that's really friendly for the general audience to review as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Could I just really
yeah.
quick add, I wanted to give my thanks to the team. I think there's a couple themes I just want to really point out. To be within or less than 1% within variation to the budget, considering all the moving parts with the different funding streams and the COVID relief funds and all those things, is tremendous work by our team. So thank you to everyone for being so tight in how much work that takes. And then secondly, also acknowledging the efforts to contain costs. That minimizes our deficit spending. We are still deficit spending, and even if we had a straight renewal, we're still cutting $16 million. So the importance of a referendum and that information being out there is critical as we look into the years ahead. And I also want to just acknowledge, I know we said it before, but the adjustments to the projection model, so we look at revenue at that 10-year average, being a much more realistic, accurate picture of our spending as compared to the revenue. I'm sorry, we're spending at 3%, taking in revenue at 2%. So that's the rub we have, and that's the story we continue to share with our legislature. So just thank you, John and Kelly and Mike and everyone else on your team for your excellent work. And I know the board will see the final audit in November. In preparation for that, I know the process has gone extremely well, although, John, like you said, it's very tedious and takes most of the summer. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
This is very thoughtful planning and positions us well, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, the next agenda item is the consent agenda. Board members, are there any items you would like to remove for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Brooks. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Motion passes 6-0. All right, the first action item this evening is a recommendation to approve the initial certification of preliminary tax levy. Information will be shared by John Morstead, Executive Director of Finance Operations, and Kelly Benusa, Director of Business Services.
I can barely get from there to here for a minute. You guys are fast. All right. Okay, thank you, Chair Dawson-Walton. This evening we'll be asking the board to approve the 2022 payable 2023 preliminary levy. The state statute requires that the school board certify the preliminary levy limitation by September 30th of each year. The purpose of this approval is to provide information to the Hennepin County Auditor so that proposed property tax statements can be prepared and mailed to all taxpayers by November 24th. Final levy certification will take place at the December 13th regular school board meeting after the Truth in Taxation hearing, giving school board members an opportunity to review the levy before its final approval and certification. Excuse me. The legislature has authorized Minnesota school districts to levy and collect property taxes for specific elements of school funding. About 46% of the dollars levied are authorized through voter approval. The remainder of the levy items are authorized by state statute as the mechanism to provide specific funding for student programs or operational expenses. This is a unique time of year for the business services staff as we are working across 3 different fiscal years. I got one. We are completing the closeout of the audit last year, which you learned about from Kelly Benusa earlier this evening. We are now actively working in the current year or the FY23 budget, and tonight's preliminary levy is the first step in the creation of the FY2024 budget.
We'll now take a detailed look at the 2022 payable 2023 preliminary tax levy. This slide replicates information included in Exhibit A of your board materials. It summarizes the total levy and the change from last year versus last year by each fund. The total proposed increase of the levy is currently calculated at $13,663,530, or 13.35%. I know this looks like a big number. Let's go down through the details and kind of create our complete picture first, and then we're going to circle back and talk about what does this mean to the actual taxpayer as far as tax impact. Other than through specific voter approval, there are four major ways that a local levy will change. First is through changes in state law. Second is through pupil unit or specific population changes. Some levy formulas are linked to the number of students served or the population of the community. Changing market value and tax capacity of the district is an important factor for levies. Some levies are equalized, which means a portion of the funding formula is paid through state aid and the remainder is paid through local levy. As market value of the district grows, these types of levies are designated to decrease the proportion of the levy picked up by state aid and increase the proportion picked up by the local levy. The final way levies can change is when expenditures change. For those programs which revenue is based upon actual expenditures. An example of this is our long-term facility maintenance pay-as-you-go levy. This slide summarizes information included in Exhibit C in the board materials. Again, total preliminary tax levy increasing by 13.35%. The net tax capacity of the district is growing by 6.58%. This is actually very favorable news for our taxpayers. Our community is larger and more valuable than it was last year. Because of this, the levy is spread out over a larger property value, reducing the individual impact of levy increases. The next set of slides cover the line items of the general fund levy. It's Exhibit B in the board materials. The first column of numbers represents the proposed pay 23 levy for each category. In the next columns, you'll see the comparative dollar amounts for last year's levy and then the change year over year. The single largest line item is our voter-approved operating referendum. Several factors influence this levy. The formula is calculated based upon pupil unit numbers. This is a voter-approved formula that includes an inflationary factor, which for this coming year, for pay 23, which funds our 2024 school year, is currently calculated at 2.38%. I know that seems low based on numbers that you've been hearing, but MDE is making adjustments to that over time, and we're actually, again, here looking out almost 2 years into the future to think what they think inflation will be once we hit that budgeted year. So that brings our voter-approved referendum currently to $1,801.56 per pupil unit. This amount may change depending on results of the November election. Also included in this line are prior year adjustments of $4.7 million, specifically due to inflation and adjusted student counts. Local optional revenue. This board approved levy is authorized at $724 per pupil unit, which was from an update made back with the Pay 2020 levy. This is a per pupil unit levy, which will increase in a manner like the operating referendum. It is an equalized levy, so that the state aid portion of this formula has declined with our increasing tax capacity, and for our district now this is a 100% levy funded item. The capital projects levy will increase as tax capacity rises. This is also a voter approved levy and is calculated as a percent of our net tax capacity. So as the total tax capacity of the school district increases, so does the dollar amount generated through this levy. Our current authorization is 3.701% of net tax capacity. This amount may change depending on the results of the November election. Operating capital levy is increasing because it is linked directly to the building age and number of students currently enrolled. This next slide covers the next several sections of the general fund levy. One item I want to highlight is reemployment insurance. This levy is tied to our unemployment costs. Thanks to the state of Minnesota using federal relief funds to cover the extensive unemployment costs from COVID-19, we had a large adjustment in our favor. Costs are estimated annually for the levy, and future adjustments are then calculated to tie out to our actual expenses, and those will be reflected in future levies. This slide covers the last several lines of the general fund levy. I wanted to highlight two areas for you. First is long-term facility maintenance. This line item includes the pay-as-you-go portion of our LTFM funding, which provides part of the funding for our rolling 10-year deferred maintenance plans and projects. This pay-as-you-go levy is increasing under a plan that is designed to keep the overall levy relatively flat. The increase you see here is mostly offset by expiring debt service bonds that we'll touch in just a minute. The other area we wanted to highlight is building leases. The building lease categories, among other leases we have, this levy includes principal and interest payments for additions to buildings such as Rice Lake Elementary and senior high additions, along with leases for activities like graduation and our portion of intermediate 287's leases. The negative amount seen is for the 2018 certificates of participation that were not ever issued but were levied in the previous year. So we're seeing a credit back to the taxpayers here of almost $1.3 million for that. So to summarize, the general fund levy is increasing by just under 16.5 million or 19.6%. We will take a look at the community service fund. This fund's levy is increasing by just over $37,000 or 1.2%. So you know the vast majority of revenue for community ed comes from fee-based programming and building rentals. The levy is a fairly small component of the revenue that they bring in. Finally, we will look at the debt service fund. Top line for a regular debt service are the planned principal and interest payments for current debt. As mentioned previously, the decrease here is due to expiring debt. Debt excess. As a reminder, we are required by state statute to levy 105% of our expected principal and interest payments on the debt we hold. As we make scheduled payments at the actual amount, leaving some left over time, as our fund balance increases in this fund, we receive a negative levy adjustment for that excess, or what is called debt excess here, to reduce the levy. This year, we are planning on keeping this negative amount, approximately $1.5 million, to reduce future payments. With that, our total debt service levy is decreasing by almost $2.9 million. So again, this is that first page we looked at, total proposed levy of 13.6, just almost 13.7 million or 13.35%. So now let's take a look at how these levy increases along with that size and value of our overall community translates to actual tax impact. This slide shows the preliminary property tax impact for the Pay 23 levy, just as we just presented it to you. Because the referendum market value and the net tax capacities are increasing, that decreases the net impact of the Pay 23 levy increase. Here in an example provided by Ellers, our financial advisor, the tax impact on a $300,000 home is $21 or just under $2 a month, about 1.6%. On a $500,000 home, $32 annually or 1.5%. Now, previously I had mentioned that we're holding about $1.5 million in debt excess to reduce future debt payments. This slide, just to give you the context, shows us taking that debt excess and reducing the tax levy by an extra $1.5 million. So if you're looking here, that same $300,000 home, their total property tax impact would be $2 for the year. A $400,000 to $500,000 is a zero or a flat change, and really going up from there, you're starting to see a levy decrease on the actual tax impact to each of those other calculated amounts. So with that, the nice thing is we don't have to make a final decision to say choose A or B today. The district is requesting that the school board approve the 2022 payable 2023 levy certification at the maximum. As in previous years, we are requesting approval at the maximum to provide maximum flexibility for the school board. This allows our staff to continue to work with the Minnesota Department of Education and finalize this data, which will be brought back to you in December for final approval, and at that time, we will also have results of the November elections. Happy to take any questions.
Is there a motion to approve the initial certification of preliminary tax levy payable in 2023 for fiscal year 2024?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, motion by Director Grady, seconded by Director Simons. Any discussion? All right.
I would just add,
Okay.
thank you, John, for trying to make that as practical as possible, because sometimes the numbers can be misleading or just tell a different story. So I thank you for taking the time to map out some examples of how that would be felt and what's the actual dollars versus the percent increases. So I just appreciate the extra time you put into that.
I'll always make my disclaimer that all of these formulas, as John mentioned, are tightly governed by state statute and the Department of Education. So there's actually a lot of good information that the district has published on the website. So on the info center, under fiscal responsibility, there's many different links that talk about our processes, provide some extra information, has the financing education in Minnesota book, literally a book, if you would like to investigate more about understanding how these formulas are calculated and how the state governs it. So much time and investment in this, like was mentioned over the summer, so really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, John, for a fully transparent process.
All right. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be back on December 13th for the Truth and Taxation hearing, and then again, the opportunity for some feedback from the board prior to approval.
All right.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next action item is a recommendation for approval of the agreement on the terms and conditions of employment between the ISE 279 School Board and Custodians, Minnesota Teamsters Public and Law Enforcement Employees Union Local 320. Information will be shared by Laurel Anderson, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, Chair Dawson-Walton, School Board members, Superintendent McIntyre. On the agenda this evening for school board action is a recommendation for approval of the custodial contract. This employee group consists of 162 employees who serve in essential frontline positions, working each day to support our school stakeholders and our community members. This contract expired on June 30th, 2022, and the new agreement contains language changes that reflect current district practices, as well as additional provisions that serve to support our district mission and strategic priorities, specifically the recruitment and retention of custodial employees. Some specific changes include: the district agreed to eliminate the one-year waiting period for employees to be eligible to receive the district match to the 403B. In the vacation section, newly hired employees will no longer have to wait 6 months to use vacation. Vacation hours will be credited upon hire. In the groups and benefits section, insurance section, the monthly district contribution towards health insurance did not change. The monetary focus for this contract was on the salary grid. Changes include revising the salary grid to have 4 steps instead of 6, and specifically steps 2 and 3 were removed from classes 3 through 6, and class 1 and 2 were combined into one classification. School board members have had the opportunity to review the proposed changes to the provisions contained in the terms and conditions, to ask questions, and to consider financial implications. Additional details of contract changes are outlined in the board memo included in your packet tonight. The new contract provisions falls within the financial parameters set by the board for the 2022-2024 contract term. It is the superintendent's and my recommendation that you approve the custodial contract presented to you this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agreement on the terms and conditions of employment between ISD 279 School Board and Custodians, Minnesota Teamsters, Public and Law Enforcement Employees Union Local 320?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Mosqueda Jones, seconded by Director Grady. Any discussion?
I just want to encourage everyone to thank their custodians. They're amazing people. And I'm very glad about this new contract to get our people compensation faster.
Thank you. Great work, yes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Laurel. The next action items are second reading of two policies, Policy 516, student medication, and Policy 519, interview of students by outside agencies. General Counsel Tim Palmetier will share information, and will take separate action on each policy.
Thank you, Chair Dawson, Walton School Board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. As stated, there are two policies on the agenda for second reading tonight, Policy 516, student medications, and Policy 519, interview of students by outside agencies. The first reading of these policies was on August 30th, 2022 at the regular business meeting of the board. Exactly 4 weeks have passed since the first reading of these policies, and under school board bylaws, if approved by the board this evening, the policies will be adopted as proposed. We'll start with revision to Policy 516, student medications, and maybe this is an area where it kind of reiterates the benefit of having students actually present and providing some feedback with respect to the student medication policy in particular. And the changes to the procedures actually do address one of the requests that were made, and I'll clarify in a bit. The policy was last revised in May of 2003. Since this policy's last revision, there have been several statutory changes that address medication management in schools. Substantive revisions to the policy address student possession and use of medications at school, and broader requirements related to safeguards in the management, administration, and overseeing of student medications in school health offices. The policy essentially directs compliance with and incorporates by reference newly proposed procedures related to student medications. The new procedures under Policy 516 have been modified to comply with Minnesota statute and the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines, which were revised in 2015 and provide direction to school districts in terms of medication management. The new procedures clarify the processes for obtaining parental authorization to administer medications, clarify record-keeping requirements, address security in the storage of medications, provide guidance on medication administration during field trips, allow for secondary students to possess non-prescription pain medications in a manner consistent with statute, which essentially says that students are allowed to possess pain medication management such as Advil, ibuprofen, Tylenol, over-the-counter medications with prior approval at the beginning of the year by the parent, and then they could possess throughout the year, and that's for secondary students. It also addresses the use of emergency medications, requires adoption of student seizure action plans as recently required by Minnesota statute, and establishes specific requirements around unclaimed or unused medications. And then if I may, I'll also address the second reading for revisions to Policy 519. Again, this concerns interviews of students by outside agencies. This policy was last revised in January of 2016. The proposed changes to this policy are limited. They address those situations where a principal or site leader can allow discretionary interviews of students at school. While schools are required by law to allow interviews of students at school when they pertain to investigations of maltreatment by the MDE or the county, other interviews by outside agencies are not dictated by state law. As a result, schools have discretion on when to allow such interviews to take place. The revisions to the policy are intended to strictly limit those types of interviews to situations that are in the student's best interest or in the event of an emergency. This would, for example, prevent interviews of students by immigration officials while at school unless there was an emergency. It is the recommendation of the Policy Committee and the District Administration that the Board adopt and revise the proposed policies as amended.
Is there a motion to approve the second reading of Policy 516, student medication?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Grady, seconded by Director Brooks. Any discussion?
I have a question. So on this policy, a concern that was brought to me is if a student overconsumes over the recommended dosage of a over-the-counter medication, what then would be our responsibility in that?
So in terms of is it a question about district liability in that situation, or?
Yep, district
Yeah.
liability and as well as safety of the child.
Yeah, I mean, clearly in terms of responsibility, we would manage that like any health crisis for a student. Nurse would be involved, and 911 would be involved, obviously, if that's the case. But as I understand the question, it's maybe what would be our responsibility or liability for a student in that situation. I think first of all, I'd say that the statute has been changed recently to afford this to occur. I think actually that likely limits any liability that the school district would have. It's acting in concert with applicable state statute. The only thing I think we'd have to be responsible for is if we became knowledgeable of the fact that a student was misusing or overusing ibuprofen. That came to our attention. In those types of situations, I think it's incumbent upon us to reach out to parents, inform them of the situation. If they're also misusing or not using in keeping with the label of the medication, the privilege could be revoked for possession of the over-the-counter pain medication.
Thank you.
So at the listening session, there was some input that sometimes when we pass policies that seem to be making things easier, that sometimes the process doesn't quite work downstream. So this is just one that, while I agree with passing it to be consistent with state statute and for the ease and benefit of our students, I think it's something just to stay close to, and if we kind of hear any feedback that the process isn't working for our nursing staff, or that there's something unexpected, that we be sure to hear that quickly and make revisions if necessary.
Yeah, and I appreciate those remarks, and in particular with respect to the procedures that we put in place here. Melissa Senes, the district level nurse, and myself spent a couple months actually making sure that these procedures in particular aligned with best practices as they're currently defined. And absolutely to your point, how it's working in the buildings certainly will influence any necessary changes. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes 6-0. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 519, interview of students by outside agencies?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second, motion by Director Brooks, seconded by Director Douglas. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes 6-0. Final action item is gifts to the district. Is there a motion to approve the gifts to the district totaling $19,888.16?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion by Director Mosquito Jones, seconded by Director Simons. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes 6-0. Next on the agenda is informational items. General Counsel Tim Paul Material will share the information on the first reading of our 4 policies, policy 532, 541, 543, and 545.
Thank you again, Chair Dawson Walton, school board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. As indicated, 2 policies are on the agenda for first reading tonight. Policy 532, use of police officers and crisis teams to remove students from school grounds. And policy 543, use of restrictive procedures as behavioral interventions for children with disabilities receiving special education services. First, we'll take up policy 532 concerning use of police officers and crisis teams to remove students from school grounds. This policy was last revised in March of 2016. The policy is required by Minnesota statute. There is only one proposed revision to this policy, and that is the addition of the following paragraph. This would be added to the policy. School resource or peace officers may not be used to perform educational interventions, including regulated interventions, either on an emergency basis or in accordance with an IEP. Law enforcement officers shall not be involved in educational decisions to remove students from school as a disciplinary response. This provision that I just read aligns with our current practice, and it effectively prevents law enforcement from involvement in educational decisions and interventions. They would become involved in situations where there's a crime or a health or safety issue. So next would be policy 543, use of restrictive procedures as a behavior intervention for students on with disabilities receiving special education services. The names of these policies are almost as long as the policies themselves. This policy was last reviewed and revised in January of 2016. While use of seclusion as an intervention is permitted under Minnesota law, the district does not employ or use seclusion rooms as an authorized intervention to be used in an emergency when needed to protect a child or other individual from physical injury. So as a result, the policy committee proposed removing the reference to the use of seclusion from the policy. There were no other recommended changes to that particular policy. First reading begins a 4-week period for reaction to proposed policies by concerned groups or individuals. After a 4-week period, the school board may adopt these revised policies after their second reading. The proposed revisions to the policies are available on the district website with the agenda for tonight's meeting. Comments on the policy discussed here tonight may be directed to the school board or myself. Comments on these policies may also be provided through the school board policy and procedures webpage located on the district website.
Thank you. All right, at this time, the board will be taking a brief recess and then reconvene in the forum room for a closed session. This session will be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, subdivision 3C for attorney-client privilege discussions with legal counsel in connection with pending or threatened litigation. Is there a motion to recess the regular meeting for 10 minutes and reconvene in the forum room for a closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Brooks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passes 6-0. Meeting is recessed at 7:27 p.m. The school board meeting will adjourn at the conclusion of the closed session. Thank you, everyone.
Ready to go.
I'll see at 1, so.